This week on the podcast, CFO or financial controller, which does your business need? Welcome to the Profit Cash Growth Podcast. This is the podcast for 6 and 7 figure business owners who are looking to grow a financially successful business. My co-host, Claire Hancott, is a finance director, chartered accountant and entrepreneur. And every week, I'll be exploring guidance and frameworks designed to help you increase your profits, improve your cash flow and grow your business. Some might say you've got to roll with it, Claire, to find your champagne supernova. What are we talking about this week?
Oasis.
It's been a bit
off,
of a
hasn't it?
Oasis heavy week this week.
Who?
Just the news and everything, the socials, the news, everything. It's just been it's
Do
been
you know
heavy.
what the biggest complaint was from people that went to that opening gig in Cardiff?
No,
That they sung too much.
they sung too much.
Yeah, apparently there wasn't enough gaps in between the songs. There wasn't enough talking. There wasn't enough engaging with the crowd.
Well,
it's really interesting.
You know my view on this. This is because actually, if you read the body language and everything that's going on here, Noel and Liam have just not made up at all. You can tell they
need the money.
They're going through the motions. They need the money. They are standing at opposite ends of the stage. They do not speak throughout the whole gig. It is definitely not right. Let's put it that way. Something's not right. And they're leaving in cars separately immediately afterwards. Like they're being chauffeured in now.
But they've both got families and they're old men now.
Not
like
really
they're not
got
doing
families.
the rock and
They're all
roll.
divorced hundreds of times. Anyway, yeah, I don't buy it at all. It's exactly what I thought it would be, which is it's a quick money grab and away it goes. But
now, when the tickets came out, you are a mega Oasis fan, aren't you? And
I didn't call myself a mega fan.
well, I
no
think
more
you've
than
owned
anybody else, but
no more than anybody else. You've owned every album. You still own it
I
in
think
CD.
everyone owns every album though.
Nope, I certainly don't.
They were if they were born in
But
March.
anyway, you are a mega Oasis fan, and I tried to get Oasis tickets, but you said to me not to bother getting them in the original sort of wave of tickets that was released, and you assured me that we were going to do Oasis in style in either Tokyo
we'll go
or
and
New
do it
York.
in Japan next year.
Yeah.
Anyway, the thing that bringing it back to business that I thought was
Sorry,
really,
we're just skipping over
really
the fact that you haven't
interesting.
secured our Tokyo or New York tickets yet.
So bringing it back to business, the thing that was really interesting, I thought, was in a story I was reading this week about the price of a pint at the Cardiff gig, which was £8.20. So price of a standard pint lager, £8.20. And it got me thinking, what would the price of a pint have been at Nebworth in 1996? So last real, massive iconic Oasis gig. And what do you think the price of a pint of lager was at Nebworth? It's £8.20 today.
Well, this is interesting. And actually, I know this quite well because when I was 20 years ago, when I was doing bar work, there was a big pivotal moment in the pub that I worked at where you couldn't get 2 pints for a £5 anymore. So a lot of people used to come in, they'd swap a £5 note for 2 pints, and for the first time ever, you couldn't swap your £5 for 2 pints. And that must have been 20 years ago now, when I was in sort of my late teens. So
But don't forget, these are gigs. Like the
go back another...
prices are double what they've been.
hang on, I'm going there. So go back another 10 years from that to 1996, and I think that a pint would have been about £1.80.
£2
At a gig.
£2
Yeah,
a gig.
okay.
So over 4 times the inflation since 1996. So just under 30 years, 28 years. So yeah.
It's staggering. But if anybody is listening and really resonates with this, please do make me feel better in the comments. But I feel like the millennium was a couple of years ago. Like my mind just has not moved on from that.
25 years.
I know.
Coming up to 26.
It's like a quarter of a century, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
like
staggering.
completely gone anyway. All right. Well, yeah, fascinating. Inflation biting into everything there. I mean, obviously, you can do the same comparison with tickets and things. Someone showed me their ticket at £34.80 when they went to see Oasis last versus their whatever it was. I don't know, at least a few £100, wasn't it, for the cheapest ticket?
No, I don't think. I think some of the cheapest tickets were like 60, 70 quid. I don't think that's that staggering. So actually, pints have gone up 4 times, but ticket prices in some cases haven't even doubled. So
depends.
Maybe they're not charging enough.
£40 for a ticket, haven't they? So, right, let's see what this week's news story of the week is. So this week, Claire, the story that grabbed my attention, because to be honest with you, I picked it out and I gave it to you because I didn't really understand it, but I knew it was something we've spoken about in the past. And the headline said, relief for small businesses, which is always a nice way to start a headline that we need to pick out. Relief for small businesses as Companies House reconsiders reforms. So it says ministers and officials were caught by surprise by the corporate registry's announcement. Now, it was a really badly constructed story, but effectively what I think the story's saying is that, if you remember, we spoke a while ago that Companies House were changing legislation to say that moving forward, you're going to need to publish your full P&L for all companies, whereas at the moment you don't.
Yeah, so this has been around for quite a number of years now, actually. It's something that the Conservatives introduced a number of years ago. And basically, at the moment, if you're a small business, you have an exemption, which means you only need to file very limited accounts with Companies House, which consists mostly of your balance sheet. You don't have to put additional notes and you don't have to publish your profitability.
Yeah.
Now, the argument for the reason why this was going to be introduced in April 2017, it would become mandatory for all businesses to publish their profitability, so your P&L on Companies House for public viewing, was that it would help twofold. First, it would help tackle economic crime and fraud.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how, by making that information publicly available, that does tackle that, because actually, HMRC have the information already, because you must still file a full P&L with HMRC. So HMRC is different from Companies House.
Yep.
HMRC already have that information available and therefore can tackle economic crime and fraud already. So it was a limited argument there. The other thing is that it would help like banking institutions and credit institutions assessing whether or not to lend to businesses, because going just off the balance sheet is quite risky. Now, again, there's a counter argument to this to say that most institutions, when they're lending money, will request a set of management accounts or full accounts from you anyway, and therefore you can share that information with who you choose in a controlled way as a business owner. It doesn't have to be publicly available. So anyway, this was announced. An email went out, I think it was last week, and from Companies House letting everybody know that from April 2027 it would be mandatory. And then a couple of days afterwards, the Labour government came out and there was a bit of a hoo-ha in the news, because they basically said this has taken the government by surprise and that they're in discussions at the moment that this will be U-turned.
Interesting. I think, the story talks about, some of the negative sides to if they did do this, and, small companies, revealing that level of information to competitors, undermining their negotiating positions with larger customers. Like, there's all these different ramifications, which I tend to kind of agree with. It doesn't feel, this is like one of those things where I don't get the benefits clearly enough outweighing any of the negatives. I don't really understand, it's certainly not a benefit to the small business, is it? It's, and I don't understand the link to crime, and I'm struggling with this one. Definitely.
Well, if they're not legitimate businesses, they won't have profit and loss statements and things like that. But the argument is
aren't profitable. So
the argument is that from the crime perspective, it's not the general public that are fighting crime, and they can absolutely mandate that information is filed and logged with the relevant organisations that need it to fight crime. It doesn't need to be publicly available for that to happen. So it's quite a weak argument, I think. Yeah. Secondly, with the credit institutions, banks, things like that, sourcing lending, most of the lenders will just mandate, they'll say, you must send us management accounts, or you must send us your full accounts.
Well, that's the reality. They just ask for the information, otherwise they won't lend on it. It's like getting any sort of lending. If you don't give it them, they won't lend. So
it seems to be quite a flawed argument that really a time when businesses are already facing a lot of pressure due to a lot of the tax hikes and changes in employment legislation and things like that. I think the government picked up on this and said, apparently the Labour government were not aware of this. I mean, it's been going on for months and months years, and the legislation's already been passed for it. So it seemed a bit silly that it seemed to take the Labour government by surprise. But to give them credit where it's credit's due, it does seem that they're reversing it.
It's quite a small thing in the grand scheme of things, so it doesn't surprise me. It's just gone under the radar a little bit.
What you've got to remember is that there's roughly about 5.5 million limited companies in the UK. And the vast majority of those are single one-man band entities. So they'll be, like us, property companies, where we've got a limited company through that is there just for property. Yeah. And there'll also be people that are just like contractors and consultants and people like that are running more like a lifestyle business. And so effectively they're asking these people to put their payslip in the public domain. So it's also, your nosy neighbour can go and see how much money you earn. And that just doesn't seem to be very justified for the
other
cause.
side to it is that, just because people can go and find these things, like you can go and do all sorts of stuff now. You can go and look up companies. How many people do it?
Yeah, because
so few,
people don't understand. They don't know how to. Yeah. But
Yeah.
Simon, don't be silly. Somebody will just set up a website and say, check the profit of any company, and you type their name in, or check the profit of any director or something like that, and it will be a completely free website to use because it will be funded by advertising, and there you go. Yeah. It'll be easy for the general public to use and be nosy. It doesn't
seem to happen so much now. I seem to always feel like I'm surprised that people don't just search a company. It's kind of like a due diligence step that most people like drop the ball on when it's an easy one to do. Just check the company exists, check the director, see what other links they've got. But people they just forget, don't they? So it'll be interesting. Well, at least I think they don't want more red tape. The one thing that this Labour government do seem genuinely behind, which is this idea of not more red tape and not more bureaucracy. And this is just more of that. So I think hopefully this will just go away. I think this will probably fizzle out into nothing now and not be something that happens. So
absolutely. So watch this space.
Yeah. Cool. Let's move on to this week's deep dive then.
Sorry, I just want to add before we move on to this deep dive. I have seen a lot of accountants saying that, just more fees and more increase in year-end costs for our clients and things like that. But actually, when any accountant is producing accounts for a client, a limited company, they will already be producing full accounts, which include your profit and loss in your balance sheet.
Because they have to. They just don't get published, don't they?
They just don't get published. So if your accountant is suggesting that your costs are going to rise because of this, they're pulling the wool over your eyes and challenge it, because you will be signing off full accounts every year already, because that is the level of detail that as a business owner you need to sign off your accounts.
But you'd know that anyway, because your accountant sends you them and you sign them off anyway.
Yeah, but do you know what they're called? Normally you get like a tax computation and your tax return for your business, and then you'll get normally what's called filleted, abbreviated, full accounts, some sort of combination of those. Yeah. And basically you get the accounts that go onto Companies House, and then you get the full detailed version with everything in. So every accounting system spits out those full accounts as standard anyway, and your accountant is already preparing those. So do not accept, even if this does go through and becomes legislation, do not accept higher accountancy fees because of it.
So, CFO or financial controller, which does your business need? Juicy title, Claire.
Yes.
So, why are we talking about this today? I'm guessing it's because you're stumbling across this question a little bit more with a lot of your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And this sort of sums up a little bit about the journey of profit cash growth and that I've gone on personally. So my background, I started doing like bookkeeping and things like that. I worked my way up as I became more qualified, became finance manager, financial controller, finance director. It was how I finished my finance career in the corporate world. And so being a finance director, when I started profit cash growth, I thought that we're going to do finance director services. So I went outsourcing clients to do that, people thinking they're getting these sort of 7-8 figure businesses that wanted a CFO or FD to work in their business. And I think it's fair to say that both the client and me became quite frustrated because I wasn't delivering what the clients thought I should deliver from a FD, and I wasn't doing the work that I thought an FD should be doing. Because actually, when these businesses were coming to me, there was just utter chaos. There was no processes and procedures in place. There was no systems. There was no data. The management accounts couldn't be used. And so therefore, every time we sat down in a board meeting to talk about strategy and driving change, it just wasn't possible because there was a million questions. And I was ending up talking to people about what's your credit control process? What's your month-end process? How do you control cash going out your business on a day-to-day basis?
And we've done so many podcast episodes, which you can go back and listen to, about kind of, the 4 key steps to generating great management accounts and all those kind of things. And all those steps are so reliant on an amazing finance function, a process that works in your business, isn't it?
So that's taken profit cash growth on a bit of a journey more recently to start pivoting towards selling more around financial controller packages. And essentially what that means is that we fix your finance function. We put all the processes and procedures in place that you need. We'll give you really good quality management accounts so that when you are ready to sit down and do that strategic piece, be it if you're a bigger business and you need sort of like bi-weekly strategy meetings, or whether you're a smaller business and actually you've only got the bandwidth to be doing that maybe monthly or quarterly perhaps, but that information is ready for that FD, CFO strategic piece.
Yeah.
And
actually, most businesses that are the size that you deal with, from 1 to 20 million, that CFO/strategic piece actually is still the owner's job, isn't it? Really, they're still not at a point where they need a CFO. Actually, if their data's dead good and really good, and they've got your advice on the side, actually they can make those decisions because the data's clean.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
You may be able to. So most people, let's talk about the three sort of roles in a finance. I'm going to call it a department, because I do think that when you're an 8-figure business, a 7 or an 8-figure business, you've got to stop thinking about your anything as a finance person. That's normally how you start. You've got an outsourced bookkeeper or accountant or something, and then you might hire somebody in-house, and they typically do admin and a bit of bookkeeping. And then you think the next step is either to get another bookkeeper, because the workload's getting too much for one person, or you think that you need an FD or a CFO to come and run your department.
And what you need to do is split out all of the roles, and even if they're only fractional at this stage, you do need to split out the roles and understand them, don't you?
Yeah. So the first one, the role that everybody should have in-house when they're ready, is a bookkeeper, and they're essentially going to handle the day-to-day stuff. So they're going to be raising your sales invoices, posting all your bills and expenses, reconciling your bank, doing your credit control, doing your VAT return, doing your payroll. All of that kind of stuff should sit with your bookkeeper in-house. And traditionally, this has been a very data entry heavy style role, but it's definitely now, with some of the automation tools that are available, which if you haven't, we did do a podcast a couple of weeks ago on the tech stack that you should have in your business. You can automate all of that data entry and have your bookkeeper really focused on sort of value add tasks, controlling things, making sure that checks are in place and things are running smoothly.
Chasing debt.
Exactly. Credit control. Every single day doing credit control.
Cash flow.
Yep. And then the second role is a finance manager / a financial controller. And really what this person is going to do is that they're going to keep everything clean. So they're going to have a real key focus on optimizing processes and procedures. So they're going to be focusing on efficiency, but also scalable processes. That you effectively want your financial controllers to create like a playbook of how things work in finance. Where are the cracks that things could fall through? Where are the issues that mean that your cash flow might not be as tight as it should be? Where are the issues in your processes that mean that your customers aren't paying you, or you might not quite be on top of some of your costs and you're paying for direct debits where you shouldn't? That's the type of thing that a financial controller is going to do, is they're going to build the playbook for how your finance department works perfectly.
Do you know what the mistake that business owners make time and time again? And it's not just to do with structuring roles in finance, but it's to do with structuring roles in all different areas. I think we've all been guilty at it. I don't know whether it's driven by ego or just lack of knowledge, but we start a business and then we give these first roles in our businesses these senior C-suite titles, and it's absolutely mental. So we go, we've started a technology business. We need a CTO, because we've heard a buzzword of this person that sits at the top of Amazon who's their chief technology officer, which is such a ridiculously strategic senior role. Actually, what you need is someone that's hands-on, managing the processes, managing the systems, because actually great businesses are built on systems, as we know. And I don't know why we do that.
Well, I know why it happens.
Because we do the same thing with ourselves. We start our business and we call ourselves the managing director, and we like...
Well, I see it all the time, particularly with finance. What happens is you've got an in-house admin bookkeeper person, and they get to a crunch point where they're like, I'm too busy, I need somebody to help me. So you hire them an admin assistant.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem right to give the new admin assistant the bookkeeper job title, and the current one keeps the bookkeeper title. So you make the current one the finance manager.
But what also...
And then before you know it, you've got a finance manager that actually doesn't have any financial background, has no knowledge. I was just about to say,
you have a massive issue, because what happens is your business grows the wrong way round. So you've got your person that you brought on as their first job is they're actually a bookkeeper, but you call them financial controller. And then you're stuffed from the off, because as your business grows,
you can only put above them.
You can only put above them. So but you don't need an FD. What you need is an actual finance controller.
Yes.
And they need to be demoted, and you create this massive problem. So don't fall for and don't get drawn into this job title nonsense that goes on, including yourself, because like the definition of managing director is a manager that manages the other directors. How can you do that if you've got no other directors, but yet we call ourselves managing director? It's mental, isn't it?
Yeah. So back to what a finance manager controller does. They're going to keep all your processes slick and efficient and under control. They're going to give you your playbook for finance. But the other thing that a really good finance manager or financial controller should do is they should do your reporting. They should be able to deliver your cash flow reporting, a 12-week rolling cash flow. They should be able to deliver monthly management accounts, and they should be able to deliver a KPI dashboard.
Yeah.
That should be an absolute given. And when you get those numbers, you should trust them. If you don't trust them, something's not right in your month-end process, and that's a function that the finance controller needs to fix.
Hence the right definition of the job, financial controller, because it's all about control of systems, control of processes, control of data.
Absolutely, yeah. I love the way that you just described that. So that's really what a finance manager, financial controller does. And somebody that has that background isn't necessarily going to be just a qualified accountant. That's where you'll be looking for a qualified accountant that has also managed a team or implemented change, managed processes, drive efficiency, that type of thing as well. So just going by a qualification isn't enough.
Okay, so just from a practical perspective, because we have so many different size businesses listening to us.
We've forgot the third role, the finance director or the CFO. You're skipping on there, Simon. So, and then the final role that you've got in your business is the finance director or CFO style role. And basically what they're going to do is they're going to use those numbers that have been generated by your financial controller, and they're going to drive strategy with you. They're going to talk about the best way to grow your business in a profitable way, to make sure that you're long-term sustainable, that you achieve your personal goals. All that type of strategic stuff is really what a CFO, FD person's going to do. They're not going to be doing any of that day-to-day operational stuff.
Okay. What sort of revenue levels do you genuinely believe that a business needs finance director / CFO?
Most businesses...
You cut the crap.
Yeah. Most businesses don't need an FD until they're 5 million plus.
That's much lower than I would have said.
And it does depend on the complexity
I'd have thought it would have been 20 million.
It depends on the complexity of the business. So what we're going to do now, Simon, is we're going to move on to how do you know that your business is ready for a CFO or FD? Because a CFO or FD, the reality is a good one in this market. When I was working as an FD, I had a 6-figure salary plus benefits plus the same again in bonus. That's a significant chunk of money in your business if you want somebody that's worth their weight in gold. But they should pay for themselves. What you don't want to do is go and recruit an FD or a CFO and they're actually doing a bit of bookkeeping and a bit of financial manager's job and you're paying them 6 figures a year.
That's my concern, is that I feel like the problem is that for that person at that level to pay for themselves, it's going to be really challenging if they're in a business that's turning over less than 10 or 20 million. In my view, I think at 5 million, they've not got enough money to play with to pay for themselves. And that becomes...
It does depend on the business.
Yeah.
But let's go over the sort of 4 key things that you've got in place that means that you're ready to utilise the cost of a CFO. Because if you're paying for them, you need to get bang for your buck. So we'll go over how
these are like 4 signals that your business will be screaming at you, which says
you're CFO
that actually
ready.
You are CFO ready. You are finance director ready. Yeah. Okay.
And the first one, which I think links a little bit back to your point about the size of the business and can they afford it, is a management team.
Yeah.
And this was the first sort of penny drop moment for me as to why I wasn't delivering the change that the business owners that had recruited me as an FD wanted, was because they didn't have a management team in place. So I was sitting in a meeting every month with just the MD and we were talking about all these things that needed to happen and we were putting this plan in place and we were costing it and saying it was affordable over the next 3 to 5 years and this was the strategy and these were the goals.
And then there's no one to implement it.
There's no one to do anything. The business owner's then on site next day dealing with a customer that's made a complaint or is going out to quote a job the next day.
Yeah.
And so nothing is happening. Nobody is there to drive change in the business or take ownership of anything.
Yeah.
And that's a real significant issue. So if you don't have a management team yet, you're not ready for a CFO or FD.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that it might not be worthwhile to have a quarterly chat with a CFO or FD to see if there's anything obvious that you're missing or anything you could implement. But it's not a full-time role or a fractional regular role in your business.
Yeah, cool.
And the next thing is slick processes. If you don't have slick processes, not just in finance, but across your whole organisation, then you're not going to be able to drive change quick enough. And again, you're going to go back to your monthly meeting with your CFO, your FD, and you're going to tell them that you basically haven't implemented anything and therefore we're going to have the same conversation over and over again.
So there's quite a few things in this flywheel of getting the benefit from the FD's insight and advice. You've got people for implementation and now we're into systems and processes that are already there. This isn't about putting them in place because that's the financial controller's job in finance and so on, but actually in the business it needs to already have those so that when that idea or that strategy comes out, it flies through the business.
Absolutely, because those slick processes and procedures, not just in finance, across the business, they make you profitable. They give you reliable profitability, and they give you reliable cash flow.
Yeah.
And once you've got that, then the CFO or the FD looks at that and says, okay, how do we scale that up to the next level?
Yeah.
How do we take advantage of our reliable cash flow? So you need that underlying foundation to be in place first.
Okay.
So the next two are very closely linked. They're quality data and reporting that you trust.
Yeah.
And you can't have reporting that you trust without quality data.
Yeah, they come in consecutive order.
So if you're running your business off spreadsheets or an email system that you can't extract data from and trust it, and people aren't following the same processes, and things aren't logged in a timely manner and things like that, then your data is going to be absolute rubbish, and therefore your reporting, your management accounts and any KPI dashboards that you get also are going to be rubbish.
Yeah.
And therefore you can't use them to make decisions. So the biggest problem I have is when I get management accounts from, one of the things that we do as a business is we do an audit for clients before they come on board with us, because it really lets us understand what help do they need, what stage are they at, are they ready for the FD stuff, or are we focusing on financial controller? And often I will ask for a copy of their management accounts, and when I look at them and I'm just like, I can spot 10, 15, 20 mistakes off the top of my head, which tell me that the processes are broken, and therefore the data's not good, and therefore actually the profit number here is completely wrong and the cash number here is completely wrong.
Yeah.
And therefore we can't make decisions. We need to go back to the basics, fix the processes, fix the data, fix the reporting. So if you ever look at your management accounts and think, I don't trust these numbers, or I've got questions, I'm not sure on this, then that's a sure sign that you're not FD ready.
Cool. Good. What about financial controller ready? Are we doing that? Or are we just doing the FD ready? Same thing, really.
I don't think
they're kind of linked together, aren't they? I guess, like you say, to be honest with you, if you've not got a lot of these things, then you're not even you're financial controller ready, but not FD ready, aren't you?
Yeah,
that's the point, isn't it? These things, if you're not ticking these, it's in reverse, isn't it? If you're not ticking these 4 things, then actually what you need to do is you need to get your house in order, and the person that does that financially is a financial controller or a financial controller services to just batten this down, and then you get, well, like we say, then you can make smart decisions because you get better data at the other side.
Once you get above about 500k, then you would benefit from having a finance manager, financial controller, and you don't need a full-time person. You
can tap into some high-level knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that we do for our clients the most now is we do a done-for-you service where you can outsource that financial controller piece to us, and we'll implement the processes, we'll implement systems, we'll train your team, we'll make sure that everything's working. Or we also will, if you've got somebody in your business that's currently a bookkeeper and you're thinking, you know what, actually long-term, maybe they could upskill and move into a finance manager position.
Yeah.
We will do that mentoring for you. We'll help them to learn and implement and progress.
So that once the systems and processes to which you've helped get where they are, they maintain them. Because it is hard to maintain them. They can slip if they're not managed.
Yeah,
so
it's
you
a little
manage that team, don't you?
It's a little bit of a slower journey because we're not just focusing on the outcome of having financial control. We're also focusing on upskilling and training your existing team member. But it does produce a better outcome long term for your business, because it does mean that you've then got that skill set in house long term.
To be honest, I think it's a great thing for business owners, because basically what you're saying is you're just going to take all the boring, really mundane stuff that no business owner wants to do, and you're going to sort it out.
Oh, you've really got to have a passion for this as well.
I mean, you have. It's what you quote unquote call grunt work. I mean, it really is the grunt work.
Yeah.
It's not the sexy stuff, the FD stuff, all the strategic, the nice advice stuff. This is the grunt work. This is getting your business running like a well-oiled machine.
It's looking at a spreadsheet that your team's supposed to use and saying, why is your team not using this spreadsheet? What doesn't work in this process? What needs fixing? What software do we need in place? What checks and measures do we need in place? And it really is business-wide processes, not just finance, because ultimately everything flows through to the finance department into your numbers eventually.
Yeah.
So, we're not just looking at your payment run and your credit control and your invoice processing. We're looking at your quote process. Yeah. We're looking at, what your sales team do when they're following up on leads. Everything leads through to finance.
It's why there's quite often when you go into bigger businesses, you'll find that the finance director or the CFO is actually also responsible for the business process team or the customer support team, because actually the whole thing links into, the person that's raising the invoice with the customer at the support level is the one that's checking the back end.
So generally, in very large organisations, you have the CEO who typically is leading the commercial side of the business. So that will be sales and marketing. And then the CFO typically leads would be all the support services. So that's IT, HR, finance, everything in the background. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks, Claire. And let's move on to this week's Profit Cash Growth Extra. So I like simplicity, Claire, in an ever complicated world.
Yes.
And we started with Oasis, who frankly have written some of the most simplistic songs ever known. And then before them, we had people like the Beatles who did the same. And actually, simplicity sells, doesn't it?
Yes. I don't know where you're going with this. But...
Because this week's Profit Cash Growth Extra is a digital to-do list. I mean, talk about simplicity. I love it. So I've been looking for a long while for a very, very, very simple to-do list that can sit on my computer on the place that I spend most of my time. And the place that I spend most of my time is on my web browser, Google Chrome.
Yeah.
Where all your tabs are there with everything that's ever there now. And I wanted one of those tabs to be my to-do list. And I found a Google Chrome extension. There's a few out there. I've tested a few. Some of them are just trying to be overcomplicated. I really did. I mean, genuinely wanted something that's so simple. You just type it in and a list is on your screen in front of you. You delete it off when it goes. And this is really the simplest of them all. It's totally free. It is, funnily enough, called To-Do List Chrome extension.
But I think that you're playing this down a little bit. So what this becomes like every time you open up a new web window, this is the default that pops up.
Yeah.
So most people,
it's always in your eyes.
Most people, if they use Chrome, the Google search will pop up as the default. But what this does is that replaces that. So you have your to-do list in the background, you have a search bar, but also what I really love about this is that you've got shortcuts pinned down the left-hand side as well. So the most frequent tabs that I go into a lot, so that's, it's Xero, it's our reporting system, it's our CRM system, they're all there for quick links to open tabs and do the work that I need to do. So it's almost
tabs or are they bookmarks?
They're bookmarks
so
that open a new tab.
Yeah.
But it's almost become like a little dashboard.
Yes. Yeah, I like it.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's for people that work on a computer a lot, not an iPhone. Because for the people that are on the go, they'll probably have to-do list or use one of the Apple tasks or something like that. But I used to have that app on my phone, but then I was like, well, I'm on my computer every day. How do I manage it on my computer?
From a productivity perspective, I prefer this because I had stuff on my phone, but actually I realised that at some point during the day, even though I'm out and about a lot, there's multiple times during the day when I'm back to the computer and I'm back on that dashboard. And that's all it needs. It needs that you can put something on there and when you sit down and you're back there, your list is there, it's there. It's just so easy. And you can drag and drop them by priority so you can list them how you like. So I just put my priority at the top. I can work through and it can be like an ongoing, it's what I call like a rolling to-do list. I love rolling to-do lists. They just constantly roll and it's gone. Once it's done, it's gone. I just called myself so simple. Did you hear that? I'm so simple like that, but I love it. Yeah. So it's called To-Do List Chrome extension.
It's a Chrome extension.
Chrome extension, but works really, really well. So thanks for joining us for another week's podcast. As always, if you feel like you might have outgrown your current accountant, you'd like to work with Claire and the team at Profit Cash Growth, especially if you'd like to sort out your processes and you'd like to talk to her about the finance function, the finance controller services and everything that they're doing for some of our clients out there now, then nip over to the website, profitcashgrowth.com. On there, you can book a quick call. You can order a free copy of Claire's new book, Profit by Numbers, or you could listen to all the back catalogue of the podcast, where every episode is very evergreen in the deep dive. And as always, if you just share this, if you've got some business owner friends who are really struggling with some of their internal processes, just wherever you listen, there should be a little tab that says share. You should be able to copy a link, text it over to a friend and say, this is a really, really helpful business podcast. Take a listen and we'll see you again next week.